This episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by our wonderful Patreon backers. If you go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, you can join that legion as little as $1 a month. It gets you cool perks like episodes a day early, free music, all kinds of cool stuff, and it really helps us out. We appreciate it.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a favorite you can dig.
Can you dig it?
Can you dig it?
Yes.
I can dig it.
Boy, with delight do I dig this.
Expect us to dig it.
Yes, expect us to dig it and also make several bad puns, as this game does. Which game, you ask? Shovel Knight. We're talking about that this week as part of our interstitial session in the run-up to Bloodborne.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a platformer developed by Yacht Club Games for the PC, 3DS, and PlayStation in 2014. And I have played the PC version and the 3DS version now. And I am happy to have bought it twice and look forward to buying it in the future.
Yeah.
That's probably not true. But it cannot be understated how goddamn delightful this game is.
It cannot be overstated.
Or overstated. Yes. Actually, there's just exactly one accurate point. And it's the modifier goddamn and the adjective delightful. So
Yep. All right, podcast over. You want to find us on?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Left it.
So in the run up to this, and I believe that you even said this in the Check It Out Comrade episode, which put that in the show notes so people can go listen to that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That this is the best game to come out in 2014.
Yeah, I think the real strong argument for that.
Yeah.
You know, like what competes with it? Like, there's a lot of stuff that came out this year that I liked.
Dark Souls 2.
Dark Souls 2 is great. Dark Souls 2 is really good, but like that might be a case of higher highs and lower lows, and also doesn't have the. This is new. Mm-hmm. Like that was a sequel, so there's automatically like a mild demerit, just because it's not a totally original property.
Right. But this is new, and in a lot of ways it's very old because it is a real throwback to NES platformers. If you look at this and if you kind of like see everything that is written and made about this game, hinges on the fact that this looks like an NES platformer.
Yeah, similar to 3D Game.Heroes, which is a over-the-shoulder NES adventure game with a different kind of visual style. Yeah. This is very much NES platformer in the vein of like Zelda 2 or DuckTales. So not Mega Man, no shooting attacks. Instead, you have a very short range melee a la Zelda 2, and a pogo a la Zelda 2 after you meet the swordsman and DuckTales.
Right, and you have some spells and stuff to complement that. So there's a little bit of
Castlevania-esque.
Yes,
sub-weapons.
Yeah, well, that draw down from a mono tank, but it is an incredibly deliberate platformer in terms of being very tightly designed, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's like beautifully designed. Like there is not, the way we talk about in Dark Souls how elegant the tutorial level is, or the first level is, or go way back and listen to the first episode of Watch Out for Fireballs. And we talk about how good the first level of Mega Man X is. This game's up there. Right. With that, like it just communicates everything really, really perfectly without text.
Yeah, and it's charming. God damn, is it charming? Yeah. Like humorous. In a more direct way than a Dark Souls would be, just because of the tone that a Dark Souls has to take. But everything here feels just weird and offbeat enough to be its own. It evokes the feeling of weirdness from that era in a way through its characters and designs, and is just kind of like cute, right?
Yeah, super cute, like very attractive, and like aesthetically, all cylinders are firing. Like I did not plan for me to be able to edit the Jet Grind Radio episode and this episode.
Yeah, you got Rock Band too.
So. I really am doing all the best music.
I get Star Control though, so I
Star
get
Control has really good music.
I get
like,
8-bit Devo, okay?
Yeah, like that I was not expecting that game to have good music, and it really does. And you get to do all the awesome music in Lord of the Fallen.
Yeah.
So all the slow swings,
Dun, dun.
strings, string swells and stuff.
Yeah. If you need me, I'll be in the Hans Zimmer Singularity.
Yeah.
Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah. There's a guy with armor. The shield is down. Attack him now. But yeah, this is so beautiful to look at and so amazing to listen to. And like, I'm going to use so much fucking music from this because it's all so good. That main theme is just like, I feel like it's a new classic. Like it is up there for me with like the Zelda theme and, fucking Bubble Man and all that stuff. Like it is a new classic.
Yeah.
That song is so good.
You would expect something, like if you just looked at the description of this, a Kickstarter game that is meant to evoke games from this era, you would expect it to be tasteless.
Yeah.
You would
again, we keep piling on Retro City Rampage for no reason, even though I don't think either of us have played that game very much. But like, you'd expect it to be slightly more crass than it is. And it is just a joyous expression of everything good about video games.
It doesn't hit you over the head with its cues, either gameplay design or visual. Like it's subtle in its, kind of like colorful and broad way.
Yeah. And it's awesome too, because it is from Kickstarter, and they didn't make the mistake of like, Kickstarter games tend to either go overambitious, and then you run into Double Fine problems.
Star Citizen, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's no good. And then they go, they feel kind of cheap and underpolished and stuff. And every once in a while, you get that like perfect balance, and like that's something I really like the Shadowrun Return games for, because they're modest. Like they weren't aiming for something huge, so they hit it. And this game is like that too, except I would say it's probably more complete. Like they it's not overambitious, it's not underambitious, it's perfect.
Right.
Like I don't throw that word around all the time, but it is so good.
Yeah. It is a delight to play. And if our language hasn't made this clear, if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, oh, Shovel Knight, why are they talking? Just go play it.
Yeah. Even if we're going to lay out why we're covering this on a Dark Souls podcast, even if you don't care about that, or you stop listening now, or you don't buy what we say, if you like video games, I feel confident that you will like Shovel Knight.
Right.
Like it is a game for people who love video games. So Cole, why are we talking about this?
Well, since we are in our interstitial, kind of like followers and influences kind of series for this show, this game directly cites Dark Souls as an influence. The developers have come out and kind of like laid this out. And this is, one of the first major indie games post Dark Souls to really kind of like lay that bare, to kind of like wear it on its sleeve, right?
Yeah. And look, I think we're going to get a lot more of that. Like, I know we're going to get a lot more of that.
Yeah, Salt and Sanctuary and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah. A lot, and what is it? Some Titan Souls. Like a lot of games right now are pulling that out. But this is one of kind of the first, and my argument would probably be the best so far. It also, and specifically the way it kind of cites it, is the way that it treats death in the game. Similar to Dark Souls, you can die. There aren't limited lives. You can die as many times as you need to. But the issue is resources. So there is an element of if you die, you lose these resources you built up, and you have to make it back to the spot where you died.
Right.
It's not quite as harsh as Dark Souls, but it has a similar kind of flavor to it.
Yeah. And the process of dying in this doesn't feel punishing. You don't have, a stock of lives, right? And every death gives you another opportunity to get back to where you were. So there's the same kind of feeling of incrementally mastering these areas that it's putting in front of you, kind of stretch by stretch.
Yep, absolutely. And you're punished for rushing through.
Yeah.
Similar, It is hard, though, too. Like, you're going to die in this game a lot. They give you a death counter at the end with the latest patch, and I was at like 55 or 60, which is a lot. Especially given that this is the second time I played this game. But it is really hard. It has that kind of throwback NES-style difficulty to it.
Right. So if 3D Game Heroes was the Zelda side of Dark Souls, this is the Castlevania side of Dark Souls.
Yeah, without so much of like the attendant bullshit.
Right.
Like, it's not like an I want to be the guy, style. And it's not like Ninja Gaiden, it doesn't feel cheap ever. Though it does a really good job of, like, Castlevania is the way to put it, because it feels fair in the way that Castlevania does. It feels considered.
Yeah, and most of the challenge, it doesn't come from the enemies or the combat. Every enemy is there to complicate the platforming,
right?
In a way, so that does make it like a Castlevania.
Yeah, another Dark Souls thing it has in common, and this isn't on the list, but I just thought about it, is the way that your verb set does grow, but is mostly there from the beginning.
Right.
Like the same way you can do a Soul Level 1 Dark Souls run, you could do a run of this without using any of the upgrades that you get like very easily. Like you have a very simple verb set, and it's right there from the beginning.
Yeah. I haven't even tried, but like, can you get through this without using any relics?
I think so, because usually the relics are introduced with an optional area that help them along, and there are lots of, you won't be able to 100% complete it because there are those challenge zones specifically for relics. But I really kind of think that you would be able to,
right?
Because the areas where you use them tend to be towards treasure and kind of reward rather than on the critical path.
So you have the possibility for self-imposed challenge runs too.
Yeah. Yep.
Something that I have in here, and this is a little bit more tenuous, but you kind of notice it a little bit because it's attendant to the good design of the levels. They have a little bit of storytelling and stuff through gameplay. The stories are pretty quaint and simple, things like that. You have NPCs who spout off a little bit of dialogue, but even within these individual levels, you're kind of getting a sense for the purpose that they served before these enemies, overran them.
They also do like. That is a little bit tenuous. I will buy it, but it's like one of the things that I think that it does that's less tenuous is that they do through environment and storytelling. They do character sketches really, really well. So like even if it's not a narrative about, say, Plague Knight, you get such a good sense of who Plague Knight is by playing through his level.
Yeah.
So like they do a great job of characterization through an environment, which is something that Dark Souls does as well.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it with the setup. Right, the plot. You have this beautiful Ninja Gaiden-esque NES intro that lays out the kind of the character of this world. With these two bravest fighters, the Shovel Knight and his faithful partner, the Shield Knight, who is a Lady Knight. And during this attack on the Tower of Fate, they get separated, and the evil Enchantress rose to power. Right.
Yeah, and so. She, along with her Knights of No Quarter, which she either conscripted or recruited or are naturally kind of, shitheels, they reign terror over the land until you, as the Shovel Knight, are goaded into action to attack the Enchantress and rescue your beloved Shield Knight.
Yes.
And something you mentioned when you said like the bravest warriors in here, it reminds me like this has tons of Adventure Time DNA too.
Yeah.
Which like I didn't notice like from character design and then from the fact that like, Noun Knight.
Yep.
Is a real... prince and princess thing in Adventure Time.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
but it's totally apt. Man, oh man! In the run up to this game, I got tired of reading about Shovel Knight because I expected it to be like lol random almost in terms of the humor, like a knight with a shovel, what? But so little deal is made of it.
Yeah, you just buy it. Like it's kind of like, and it's funny too, because you would think I was expecting something. I was also a little bit jaded because I was expecting it to play more into the gameplay in a way that I didn't want it to. Like I was like, oh, you're going to dig around or you're going to do something like that. Like, nope. You really just kind of use this as a shovel from time to time to get treasure. But for the most part, it could just be a sword.
Right.
And other than the fact that like, people underestimate you because you're carrying a shovel and it has more character, but it's not little random and it's not so central to the gameplay that like you're playing a different kind of game, which is great. And as I mentioned before, you start out with this intro level, which is like among the best intro levels in gaming.
Yeah.
Just the planes and God, the song, like which I definitely am giving it a high. It's not just playing in the background now. It's going to get its like 15 seconds of fame on its own. But this song is so good. Like the beginning of this, it just like does so much for me. Ugh.
Yeah, it put me back in my the spare bedroom in my grandma's trailer, playing my NES games. Like,
yeah.
Here's Ninja Gaiden. Like, get pumped.
Exactly, it's propulsive in like a really, really good way. And just it's propulsive and catchy, and just everything is beautiful. It looks really good, and you're just like, yep, I'm down for this adventure. Like, I want to go right and do stuff so badly right now, and you have convinced me to.
And something else this first level does, I love it when the first level of a game puts the final destination in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really clever. Even if geographically it only kind of makes sense.
Right.
It's super, super clever.
It's a very clear day.
And yeah, it's one of the things, too, that like this game does, because it's mostly the devs set out to make this feel as NES-y as possible. And if it is for the most part, but there are a couple of cheats they do where this couldn't run on NES, and like some of the background scrolling stuff is one of those.
Yeah. I wonder if there is a possibility of like a demake of this.
Yeah.
That takes those considerations out.
Flicker Night?
Yep.
Like I don't that I would be interested to see that, because that's what we keep talking about Retro City Rampage. Like that's one of the things about that. I saw that guy do a talk at PAX, and he made that originally to try to make the most advanced NES game you could, and then commercially released a version that has these little tweaks. But the original version was him like reverse engineering an NES and saying, if you had all of the chips and stuff that came out during that system's lifespan, what is the most advanced game you could make?
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Like it's not super fun to play, and it's full of memes, but like it is a cool, like he's a cool, smart dude, and it was a good idea.
Yeah. So this is a masterful tutorial because it's kind of introducing you to these mechanics as you're going along, and it's never an explicit tutorial. Just like, oh, here's an enemy that when you use your shovel on him, he flips over. Oh, here are some bubbles that actually you use to do a pseudo double jump to navigate these kind of things.
And they're doing the thing where they introduce a thing with no consequence and then introduce it with consequence. Like the first bubble you jump on, there's no pit under you. The second one, there is a bubble floating in the pit. The third one, the bubbles are moving. So like it is ramping things up like masterfully.
Yeah, training wheels, no training wheels, motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. It's also like just a real like playground to like just try something. Like you run into something in your environment, you run into this pile of dirt, and it's got these little sparkles in it. So you're like, huh, I know when I hit B, I use my shovel, and you shovel it, and you get this satisfying, noise, and you do some dirt, and you do that, and you get money from it, which is like, this is a very avaricious game.
Yeah.
Like this is a game about collecting money.
Jewels, wands, scepters, everything must go.
Yeah, exactly. Like you want the treasure in this game.
Yeah.
And they also do a good job of like, you definitely get to the point where money is meaningless, but they do a good job of making it meaningful.
There's a good arc right up until it hits a wall.
Yeah.
Or like flat lines.
Yep.
Yeah. You also see the checkpoints, and we left this out of the conversation about the way this treats death, but there's a little bit of risk reward in whether or not you leave these checkpoints alive, whether you leave them intact, because like we said, you're going after this money, and there is money to be gained by destroying a checkpoint in order to get the precious money within
the turtle meat
Yep.
in the inside. And it is in this first level you can't destroy them,
right?
Because this level's a little easier, but that becomes later, and it's really brilliant. Like this idea of like, you can do this thing to get some more money, but then if you die, you're going to start way back. And watching speedruns of this game, which I recommend anybody do, I'll put it in the show notes, the one from the last AGDQ, because the developers called in and talked about it, which that's always fun. Yeah. But speedrunners who are so perfect at this game just destroy all the checkpoints in a way that like has me biting my nails. Like, I can't believe you're going to fucking destroy the second to last checkpoint in Propeller Night stage. Like, that's nuts. Yeah. That seems like a recipe for misery. But
because for me, like I would gain less money from that than I would lose, or than I would. Yeah, this sentence doesn't make any sense. I would gain less money from that than I would gain by, just having a shorter distance to risk losing anything else.
Right. Yeah. And for me, the way, since I don't play for high scores and because you get enough money naturally, like it's not necessarily for me to do that. Like as we, I just want to get through the game and see everything it has to offer, which the game accommodates that totally. And there's tons of hidden shit, which is great. But I like that it's there.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Another just kind of brilliant design thing about this, or at least a consideration, is that they don't fall apart on the first hit. You really have to work at it.
Yeah.
To take them
like,
apart.
so you can't do it accidentally.
Yeah.
Super good.
We're going through this and this level in some pretty close detail, just because of all the new stuff that it's introducing. As we go later on, we're going to talk more about the gimmick and theme of a level. So forgive me if I sound incredibly zoomed in when I say that I love that the power ups are food platters.
Yeah, that's super super cute. Yeah. I really like that too.
It is floor meat as opposed to wall meat.
Exactly. Like I would eat meat that came out of a wall if it's hermetically sealed in a platter. Like I'll eat anything on a platter. I challenge you, listeners.
Just a. Oh man, that sounds like a recipe for disaster, Gary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going back to other just like super zoomed in considerations and generalities that are just part of this first level. When I was talking about hidden stuff, I love the way that hidden stuff is treated because it's not bullshit NES where you jump and something appears.
Oh yeah.
It's good NES where there's a visual cue, or like oftentimes there's just like a out of the way like kind of hole in the wall. And like you're like, well, I wonder if I bounced on this guy and then this guy, I could probably get up there. And if you do it, you're always rewarded.
Right.
Which is a total Dark Souls thing. Like, it's one of my favorite things about Dark Souls is like, I wonder if I should check behind that stair I just came down. Oh shit, there's something there. Like, even if it's something shitty, they always put something there to make you feel good about the fact that you checked.
Yeah.
And this game is great about that because the things that they give you, it's either, a lot of money or straight up, power-ups frequently. Like all of the power-ups in this game that you find throughout the levels, and we'll talk about them, are hidden in these like really, really kind of cleverly hidden, but like the difficulty curve is really good. Like you feel good finding it without ever being frustrated by it.
Yeah. And the visual vocabulary on where hidden stuff is at is so consistent and so considerate. I'm going to use that word a lot because this is a very considerate game, that you're able to spot these discontinuities in the wall no matter what tile set is happening. Like they signpost it in a really super friendly way that, the second you walk into a new space, you can kind of clock it.
Yeah, it's not cloying. It's not like a big like X on the wall.
Right.
It reminds you of the way that Isaac does tinted rocks, where like once you know what those look like, you can always see them. It's like that. Like once you know to start looking for these things, like they are earmarked really well. There are every once in a while there are these kind of mid bosses. They don't come up a lot, and it's kind of weird that they introduce them in the first level, even though they're not frequent.
Right.
But this one's real cute and deliberately recalls Mega Man, so I'll forgive it.
Yep.
Is a sleepy yellow dragon.
Yeah. I like these just because I love any kind of big sprite enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this guy is kind of here to show you, at least the lesson that I learned from him is that you can pogo on something multiple times in order to do damage to it. Like this is a guy that you kill just by pogoing on his head over and over again because that puts you out of the range of his breath attack. Yeah,
and in general terms, I pogoed like crazy to get through this game. That was my main attack. It's not the professional way to do it. Speedrunners, you attack, just straight up attack. But for the most part, I pogoed on things.
I suppose that makes sense. Like if you're pogoing, you are waiting to land. Yeah.
Yep, you're in there. It is faster to do it if you attack and jump, and then you can attack as soon as you land. So you do the speedrunners do this weird tap jump attack thing. That's amazingly quick. Like you just watch the enemy HP just drain super fast.
The boss of this area is the Black Knight, who is your standard rival in a game like this, and he's kind of going after the Shield Knight in his own special Black Knight way. Yeah, and as I would expect from a game of this caliber, like he's not strictly a bad guy, right? Which I really like. He's more of a somebody who wants the same thing as you do, but is doing it in different ways. Right. The fight is a lot like fighting somebody with your vocabulary, but a little bit more limited. And as you're going to keep running into him, and he gets more and more moves that are kind of like advanced or flashier versions of things you can do, which is really cool. Yeah. So like what you're going to encounter here, he has this thing that approximates your pogo attack, but it's a regular like sweeping jackhammer kind of thing,
right?
Where he will attack horizontally at intervals by dropping. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so after you beat him, after levels, you do this little sleeping scene. And sometimes you just wake up. Sometimes you have this dream. And these are really beautiful.
Yep.
Like, there's a very, like, it is just Shield Knight falling from the sky in kind of slow motion, and you just have to catch her.
Yeah.
But it just says catch her, And it's like, I don't know, man. Like I came out of this believing the bond in these two characters for being so little, like so abstractly related. Like, it's like, oh, he loves her.
Yeah. He dreams about her. Like
this is like really pure and good.
And we'll talk about it in the ending, but this is kind of building up a damsel metaphor that, refreshingly is not the case.
Yeah. That's subverted at the end in a really, really interesting way. Yeah. So good.
Yep. But yeah, it is a wonderful little bit of surreal melancholy that tugs right at the strings of my heart. You know what else tugs at the strings of my heart, Gary?
What's that?
Fire safety.
Yeah. Yeah. Segue.
Our forests are our treasure, and much like we try and get as much treasure in this game, we need to protect them too. So when you wake up and you have the smoldering embers, like Smokey says, you take your shovel, again working the shovel into the mechanics, and dig it up, and you get some gold, which I assume he was just burning those gems.
I think that it's just the universe rewarding you for doing what you should do.
Right.
Like every time if somebody drops their wallet and you give it back to them, like you find a couple pennies under your tongue when you're sleeping next time.
Is it the morality fairy?
Yeah.
Why is she only paying pennies?
Because she's a dark princess.
Because she's I about said stodgy, which makes no sense. Stingy. There we go. Stingy.
Yeah, she's stodgy too.
Yeah, and sometimes you get you get script for health ups and things like that. But it's a nice little post level ritual.
You get the script after you do the ones other than this one, after you do the savers, and then you just get money for the other ones. So then you were introduced to this Mario 3-esque overworld map, and you head to the village.
Right. This village that is like Zelda 2 or Bionic Commando. You have these and this is where it's the Mos Eisley, except everybody is awesome instead of being a horrible, terrible alien monster who's going to kill you.
It's a hive of fun and gallantry.
Yep.
Like
you have this bard who dances with glee every time you approach with sheet music.
Yeah.
Like everybody's animation and loop through this is just, oh man.
Yeah, and it's also when you first go in, the guy you can talk to the guy outside, and he says you can't bring a weapon in the village, and then he notices you just have a shovel and lets you in, which is again the way the shovel works your way in. But this is going to be your kind of hub where you go to spend money and stuff. That bard, throughout the game, you're collecting the sound test, which is really cool, and you're mechanically rewarded for it. Again, Shovel Knight rewards exploration. And you give them the bard, you get some money for them, and then you can play the songs whenever you like. Yeah. There are also a couple of characters that increase your stats. Yeah. There's the gastronomer and the magicist that stat up your health and mana. And the way you get the gastronomer to make you good food is get a meal ticket from the goatician.
Yep, who is a goat/mathematician.
Yes. Yep, makes sense. Again, adventure time as fuck.
Yep.
And the reason why he wants you to buy a meal ticket because he can't decide what he wants to eat.
Right.
So
for my hemming and hawing, I shall not eat today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's hilarious. Downstairs in the bar, you see a deposed king of the kingdom and a bunch of other people who tell you they're kind of like sob stories.
Right. They've been displaced by these various knights. There's also to your right is the kind of more traditional merchant character, Chester, who is called that because he jumps out of chests, according to that live stream thing. Like, what do we call him? Chester. And he sells you things, but you're going to run into him a lot.
Yeah.
And he's a jaunty fella.
Yeah, he pops out of chests, and he is like, you get the sense he is traveling ahead of you, getting these treasures before you can, so he can sell them to you.
Yeah, which is fine because I'm happy to give him my money because that's what it's for.
Yeah.
But you get two things from him right off the bat: the fishing rod and the chaos sphere, which is slightly less badass than it sounds.
Yeah.
It is a bouncy ball, but the chaos sphere sounds like way cooler.
Yeah.
And the fishing rod is really interesting too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Sometimes you can get like ichor from it, but most of the time it's just a way to get goldfish, which are fish made out of gold.
Yes. Yep. And the first time I played through the game, I didn't notice the queue for the fishing rod. I was just like, why do I have this fishing rod? This is stupid. And then the second time I played through, I actually used it.
Some of those places, like some of those fishing spots, are just real devils to get to.
Yeah, and later they start putting sound test stuff in them. Like that's how you get the sound test for the last few levels.
Yeah. The other person here who kind of became the mascot along with his lord, it was the Trapple acolyte.
Yeah, and Trapple, in case you haven't figured out, is a portmanteau of trout and apple.
Yep. So this guy, he's dressed up like an apple wizard.
Yeah, he's an apple wizard who worships a fish apple. And he sells ichor chalices, which, like, what an unappealing word ichor is.
Yep. It's a
for
chalice.
Something you're just going to drink with your mouth. And chalice is a very appealing word.
Yeah.
So
these are like your e-tanks, right? Which you can fill them up for free. It's really just kind of a little bit of a tax. If you use it, you just have to have a minor inconvenience, but it refills your health or gives you mana or gives you like a chance to collect more gold as you go along.
There's three of them. There's one that does health and mana.
Oh yeah.
One that does makes gold attract you, and one that makes you invincible for 10 seconds. And I only use the health one.
Yeah, me too. Those other ones are too specialized. Like
Yeah.
a lot of these upgrades, they're the ones that are necessary, and everything else just kind of seems to build into a self-imposed challenge.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and going to see the Tropical King, it's a sight to behold. He's right up the old crick.
Yep.
And he makes you watch a little dance, which you don't have to watch again before.
But you can if you want.
Oh yeah, there's an option. Yep. Before he squirts his blood into your cup.
Yep. Into your blood and cup. Which is great. And then we're off to and you're kind of gated. So it's not a non-linear game. I mean, it is in that you can do the levels in different orders, but you have to do all of them more or less. So I guess it's mildly non-linear, but you have these gates and you have to kill a certain number, like these certain knights before they open. Yeah. And right off the top, you have a couple of knights to choose from. And we're going to go to the Lich Yard first. Partly, or mostly, I would say going here first because the sub-weapon you get from it is so supremely useful.
Yeah. Yeah, the Lich Yard. So this is watched over by the Spectre Knight, and this is a haunted village. It is a place where you saw the refugees from this place in the bar at the other village, right?
Yep. And so the gimmicks here, one of the things are these little like bushes that you kick up to vault off of. Those aren't particularly special, but everything that shows up again, in kind of a remixed form. So like you're gonna run into these things again, but not for a long time. Which is kind of cool. Like you need to know how they work.
Yeah. So you don't just have to remember how it works, but you have to take into consideration how it might play with something else that you also saw a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. They also will black out the lights and put entire sections into silhouette, which I'm not a big fan of that. Like it's cool aesthetically, but I don't like the challenge that it brings in. It's not my favorite flavor of that.
It doesn't bug me too much. Later, I think it's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
When this comes back. Here, it seems pretty manageable to me. But what it kind of does is like if you just you're jumping between platforms, you just end up waiting for lightning. To see where you're going. So it just kind of slows you down.
Right.
Or test your memory. It doesn't do much to actually test your reflexes.
Right.
Which is kind of a bummer. And I think it's a little bit more of a bummer later. But it didn't bother me here so much.
Yeah. Large stretches of this level also have these large platforms that will drop under a certain amount of weight. So you have to manage how many enemies and sprites and stuff are resting on them.
Yeah, and many of those sprites are skeletons.
Yep.
So there are tons of awesome skeletons in this game and in this level specifically.
They're a little So this is the first time we've really encountered a huge amount of enemies, especially ones that are themed. I love the little king frogs.
Yeah, those guys are very cute. A lot of the enemies in this game are designed just to be like this kind of weird, cute thing, as opposed to like it doesn't necessarily make sense that there are electric king frogs in the Plague Village, but they're adorable and awesome, so it's fine.
Right. Yeah. So us, like, we don't get a lot of opportunity on this show to like just gush over the positivity. That's not what people come here for. But I feel a little bit ridiculous to be like, he's got a little crowd on. Look at him go.
Yeah. We're going to tack an episode about Simon's Quest onto the end of this just so you can hear us be mad about something. So we're just going to go through Shovel Knight entirely, and then we're just going to be like, well, that sure didn't make sense. Internet diarrhea, AVGN. And then you can feel good about us being bitter.
Yeah. It's just people don't usually find, the little guy here at Buffer.
Yeah. Yeah, but here we are. Even though I remember thinking that about the bugs in Stonefang Tunnel.
Oh yeah.
Like we spent a lot of time talking sugar about how cute those little guys are.
Basilisk in principle.
Yeah. I would appreciate a plush of those little Stonefang guys and these guys.
Yeah.
But the difference is every single thing in Shovel Knight I would like a plush of.
Yeah.
So I would like a line of plushes.
It is a license to stitch money.
Yes.
Yeah. You fight a big skeleton with a lantern and a golden dagger.
He's cool.
Yeah, I like him.
I like the guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk about the power that you get here, the phase locket.
Yeah, which was my MVP power of the game. I use this thing all the time, like really, really frequently. Probably abused it because it is highly abusable. It makes you invincible for just a couple seconds, and intangible for a couple seconds, not to platforms with enemies.
Yeah.
And
It's really useful in boss fights too. We had in the appendix, there was somebody who wrote in talking about how this reminded them of Dark Souls because of the iframes. Like, if you can time this thing correctly in the middle of a boss's attack, you can put yourself in a really advantageous position, just because the game didn't expect you to not have to dodge around them.
Yeah, that's really apt. Like that's why I did that during the entire game, but didn't make the connection. It's also crazy useful because unlike many invincibility power-ups, like it works on spikes. So like when you get to some of the later platforming elements where there are a lot of spikes, if you remember to use the phase locker right before you land, you have this extra little bit of assurance. So this was my default thing. I used this almost through the whole game.
Yeah, I tag team between this and the fireball.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the boss here, the Spectre Knight, which, man, oh man, the boss designs, like this is some like Mega Man level shit.
Yeah. All the bosses are these duels. They're better than Mega Man bosses, though.
Yeah.
Like there aren't Mega Man games that have bosses as good as the bosses in this game, where like the pattern recognition feels as fair or as telegraphed or anything. Like it is a series of 8-bit Dark Souls style duel fights. Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like that's all I want out of life. So this guy, he's got 2 platforms and he has a scythe and he looks real badass. And you're kind of just like figuring out what he can do. He can turn off the lights, he can summon some skeletons, but mostly he's either going to throw his scythe or charge from one platform to the other. And you just have to find the times you can bounce on his head safely.
Right. And yeah, that's kind of the shape of it. I don't know how complicated we need to make that, but the patterns with which he will throw it to kind of boomerang and hit both levels, depending on where you're at, and just kind of trying to figure out where he's going to charge to next. Does the speedrunning strategy hold true even for bosses as well? People are avoiding bouncing on them?
Especially for bosses. Like they go much quicker when you're high tapping. For the scythe thing, it ends up being about reading trajectory.
Yep.
Which is really cool. In this, like he throws this in this parabola, and you have to, by seeing the beginning of it, you have to predict where the end is.
Yeah. It's just big enough that you can just barely jump over it too, so you feel really accomplished.
And if you can't, just throw on that phase locket.
Yep.
You got it here for a reason. So, which is great. After you beat this, it opens up the Forest of Phasing, which is a challenge map to teach you the phase locket.
Yeah.
And for the mobility based powers, there are one of these. Or the ones that impact mobility, I guess is a better way to put it. So these like little challenge maps are full of treasure.
Yeah. So it's teaching you to be fearless when you have this thing on, but always waiting and watching for it to fade, so you know the last possible minute to jump up, because spikes are instant death.
Yeah. And unlike many items like this, you can actually renew it by using it while you're invincible. It's not like being cursed in Dark Souls where you have to wait for it to wear off. If you use this, it buys you another couple seconds. So like the pro tip I have is always use it while jumping. Like just like near the end, just jump and use it, because then, at the very least, if it wears out a second before you are able to do it, you're fine.
Yeah.
And then if when in doubt, just go ahead and use it again, especially in these challenge maps where they're like just give you MP like mad.
Yeah. And these are another form of very gentle tutorial, just giving you an escalating complexity on each little thing it throws at you.
Yeah. Let's talk about Pridemore Keep.
Yep. So Pridemore Keep is a step down in difficulty.
I think this is meant to be the first level that you go to, just because reading from top to bottom on the map. So
I'm just go to the spooky place first.
Yeah, like I don't blame you. Like, and they're both like neither of them are insurmountable, and you're not, you don't get like XP that makes, this the fact that it's easier necessarily meaningful. But I think this is supposed to be more of a first level, like a 1-1 or a 1-2.
Yeah. This is a big gold-plated castle that didn't sink into the lava. And kind of the gimmick around this is that it's putting a lot of gold in out-of-the-way places, teaching you to, kind of like either give into or resist temptation around a lot of this.
Yeah. It also features another adorable enemy.
Yep.
The propeller rats, which that's their official name, according to the devs on that speedrun, which are rats wearing little propeller backpacks.
I love
that fly around. Like, yeah, it's great.
It would, like, okay, so if they were just like fierce and like ready to pounce, that'd be fine. But it looks like they are just kind of like riding low in the harness, and so they're just kind of dangling.
Like somebody realized that just touching a rat hurt you because it's a video game, and the real enemy are the propellers, and these rats are just along for the ride. Like they're just there to be contact poison.
Yeah. So these guys, they're going to deploy them throughout the game in order to complicate platforming, just because they kind of slowly move in these patterns to where you have to either deal with them or use them as springboards.
Yep. There are these kind of Mega Man-esque disappearing or reappearing platforms that pop up, again with a very nice difficulty curve, like, you know, over land and then over pits eventually. And they put those in with these magical books where, like, if you hit a book, it opens these books for a time that are platforms. They're kind of floating in the air. Like the metaphor there kind of falls down for me. It's weird, but it doesn't matter. And you're going to run into these later as well.
Yeah. They make a little bit more sense in the Alchemy Night.
Yeah,
I
think so.
Night or whatever in the Explodatorium, but you know, I'll take it. It's fine. I like that they at least tried to theme it.
Yep, I think so too.
As opposed to just making some blocks.
Yeah, the item you get from here is the Fireball, which is just a straight up horizontal projectile attack.
Yeah.
Which is super useful for, you know, obviously taking things. I never used them on bosses, but they were really good for getting rid of things on the other side of the map, especially to clear a way for platforming.
Exactly. Yeah, they're semi-useful on bosses as you're trying to like learn the patterns. But yeah, there are definitely more effective ways to use that slot.
Yeah.
And the King Knight, who is the boss of this level, kind of introduces or has the first little bit of like funny dialogue as you are talking to him about how he has fallen from grace. And this is called Pride More Keep. So his sin is, you know, avarice and pride and all of that. But yeah, you're not but a decadent dandy.
Yeah. Yep. When you run into the knights, that, like, I can't overstate how distinct they are. And it comes down to their motivations too. Like, it's not like they all have different reasons for villainy. Like, some of them don't really even think that they're being villains, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, they're just serving the new master.
Yeah, and they're fine with it. This isn't that complicated of a boss fight. Probably the most complicated thing that he does is call for fanfare, and horns come out the side and have drifting confetti that falls down, similar to, like the spores in the first boss of Super Metroid.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing I can really pattern that movement.
Right. It's a bunch. It's like a whole field of chaff that you have to kind of navigate. And by this point, you don't have a lot of health to burn.
Yeah, so that's true.
It can definitely stifle your movement. And he manages your movement another way by doing these stomp attacks that will stun you as well.
Yeah, and then on the reverse side, though, I love him because his name is King Knight.
Yep.
Which are two just different, it's like dentist lawyer. Like, it's so good, you know?
Is he a lawyer for dentists? Does he practice tooth law?
Yeah, he's it's like international law. Because there's no laws in the mouth, boy. Once I get in your mouth, it's going to be like international waters.
Oh, Gary.
Anything goes. No court can convict me.
Oh, no. Yeah, you took it.
Gary's gone now. It's just me. Welcome to Bonfireside Chat.
I'm the tooth lawyer.
I'm new tooth lawyer. And I'm here to talk about what I'm going to do in your mouth.
I just picture you like Dr. Teeth from the Muppets, except like you know, like he's had a rough couple of years.
Yeah, except wearing a necklace of teeth and a crown of teeth.
Yep.
And carrying around a jar of formaldehyde with other teeth in it.
Yeah.
On the end of a staff and just shaking at people.
Yeah. He's got Dale Gribble pockets in, but it's teeth. To beat a quick escape, he just throws a handful of teeth in the person.
Yeah. I thought he threw chiclets at me, but the answer is far darker.
Yeah. It was just a palm full of canines.
Yeah. You using them wisdom teeth?
Yeah. He uses his incisor wit to win his cases.
Yeah. That t-shirt. Anywho, let's talk about the Iron Whale and our next knight that we're going to fight, Treasure Knight.
Yes. So the Iron Whale, this is a sunken submarine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's a water level. It's like Bubble Man. Where your jumps are enhanced when you're underwater. There is no explanation as to why Shovel Knight can breathe underwater, as well there shouldn't be.
Or why his armor isn't pinning him to the floor.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if it did the
Yeah, as soon as you got in. Like just
yeah. And faded
credits.
away.
Yep.
And that was the end of his quest.
Yeah. And then thanks for your Kickstarter money,
And
suckers.
then that deletes the .exe.
Yeah. And random MP3s from your computer.
Yeah. It looks pretty good. It has tax in the title. Like, no! What if I get audited?
Yeah.
So this complicates the platforming by changing your jumping physics, right?
Yeah. And by adding platforms that literally fall apart.
Yes, these bubble blocks.
Yeah.
Yep, and platforms that rise up, and tentacles that kind of extend out like non-threatening versions of the Quickman lasers.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And it has a really notable mini boss.
I love this thing.
Yeah, this thing is really, really good. Again, recalling Mega Man. So there's a treasure box, and just conspicuously in the middle of a floor, and it is actually part of an anglerfish, which is awesome. Which does a chase that's very similar to the dragon boss at the end of Mega Man 2, where it's chasing you and you're jumping on platforms while it shoots at you.
Yeah.
Until you eventually do the boss fight.
So the trick to this, you don't actually have to get him to the boss fight. You can just bounce on the treasure chest as he's floating along. You don't have to land on any of the platforms, and then he just goes away.
Yeah, you can kill him all.
Yep. So that's pretty good. And this is really the first instance of the game automatically scrolling, something that thankfully it doesn't do very much.
Yeah. And of course, this being a treasure chest, Chester actually got there before you.
Yep.
And sells you the thing from the thing you just rescued him. He sells you
Yeah.
what he just found, which is the thrown anchor, which is exactly like the axe in Castlevania.
Chester, why are you covered in mucus? Oh, well,
Yeah.
that was part of the fish. Like, it was just an adaptation.
I'm just a Joey in a sack.
I'm all slippery. I don't know how I'm breathing either. So yeah, this anchor lets you hit enemies that are above you. It's like an upward diagonal kind of attack, which I didn't end up using very much.
It trivializes one boss later, but that's the only time I use that.
Right.
So, then you run into the Treasure Knight, who is awesome because he just wants money. Like he has a straight motivation, and he actually does an attack that steals money from you. Where he gets you stuck in a treasure chest and drains your gold pieces.
Yeah, it's a treasure chest. It's like an aquarium ornament. It does little whirlpool.
Yeah,
Sucks.
sucks you in and takes your money.
Yeah, like those chests and aquariums do, you asshole, Cole.
Yeah, like exactly.
Yeah, if you want to like get rid of your fish.
Yeah,
it's the only way you can legally get rid of a fish without the tooth lawyer coming
something
out.
the size of a thumb through something the size of a pinky.
Yeah,
get one of these things. See what happens.
I'm a fucking idiot, man.
That's when you're an idiot. Makes you a fish murderer. There's nothing dumb about killing fish.
Oh man, I like
pesticide.
Cool,
pesticide Ross.
Yeah, that's good. Let's put that one up there. We're full of t-shirts today, aren't we?
Yeah, we're just full of t-shirts.
Yeah, just we're like a Kleenex dispenser of t-shirts. So yeah, he looks like a big daddy. And he has this anchor gun that this is. I find it tricky because you have to jump over him, but he takes a little while. After he shoots it, so he will turn the entire bottom half like stripe of the screen into a herp box. And figuring it out is pretty tricky. Again, the phase locket kind of fixes it. That part, which I ended up using a lot for that attack specifically. And after you beat him, you're able to move on, but it introduces these wandering enemies. That you run through, which I think, and this is not confirmed, so don't go spreading this, but I think these are all based on, this was a high tier Kickstarter reward, was to design and name these guys help design them. Yeah. So like the Wandering Knights are all high level Kickstarter backers, I think. Yeah, I like this a lot because it's a way for them to get probably boss fights that they couldn't have fit an entire stage around into the game. So again, throwing this variety in, and each of them is pretty like inconsequential in terms of story. Like most of them just think that you're a villain because you're a knight wandering around with all these knights of no quarter, right? Yeah,
these are great. Like these boss fights are good too. Like I would have loved to have it like Ninja Knight stage. You know, like this game doesn't feel, no point in this game feels like padding to me.
Right.
Like it never feels like it's not just uncovering delightful things. So eventually you get to the second town, the armor outpost. And this is where you can actually upgrade your equipment. It's pretty pricey at this point, and the upgrades are really minor.
Yeah.
There's probably the most basic armor thing you can get is you lose less money.
Right.
And then you can upgrade your shovel, but it never does more damage. It just gets some special effects.
Yeah, either sending along shocks on the ground after you do a string of bounces. There's a charge attack that you can't charge in the air, so I never found a lot of use.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the armor is just like that. Oh my gosh, the armor that saves you money is really the only armor that I got any use out of, because like the only other one that like tempted me was the inertia armor. The one that makes it so you can't get knocked back. However, that changes your momentum on like running up the jumps, and I just ended up dying in levels over and over again by miscalculating. Like the actual, just vanilla platforming in this is so well tuned that anything that strays from that, I feel like sacrifices.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. The third armor, like the magic armor, is actually pretty useful, but it's a really high risk, high reward strategy. Like it lowers your health, or you do more you take more damage. I'm not sure, but in exchange for getting more magic power.
Right.
So if you're using a lot of sub weapons, it can be useful.
Yeah. Also, all this happens in a blimp that hangs over the town.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of my little favorite bits is if you go over to the clothing store, you pay off all of these, I guess, nouveau poor, let's say socialites who are just like, oh, I would love to buy this, this stole, but I need 1,000 gold. And if you pay all of them off, they leave, and you're alone with Mr. Hat.
Yes, who likes hats and thinks that you're wearing a hat, even though it's a helmet, and tries to extort you for it. And when you don't give it to him, he has a boss fight similar to the Wandering Knights.
Right. And I love his boss fight because everything is themed around clothing. So he's so dashing. He's got a cloak and he throws hankies at you. He uses a sword cane.
Yeah.
And depending on the hat that he's wearing, he takes different stances.
Yeah, which is really cool. Like this is a great boss. This is one of my favorite fights in the game. This is probably my favorite Wandering Knight style fight in the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Super, super cool.
Yeah. Another one of those is Baz, who's a big bearded guy. And I knew that there was going to be a grappling hook in here somewhere. I'm just disappointed it wasn't going to be me.
I thought he looked like the metalhead guy from Guitar Hero.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't remember what that guy's name is.
I can't
remember. When he plays the metalhead guy from Guitar Hero, I thought so. That's what he looked like.
Oh, the black metal guy? The one who looks like a luchador? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Explodatorium.
Yep. Which up there in some
named.
I love the place name here. It's so good. And this is like a Frankenstein scheme. This is a mad scientist lab.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is ruled over by the Plague Knight, right?
Yes. Yeah. So there's different kind of things you're dealing with here. Lots of explosive floors, like exploding rats that then explode floors, or crows that drop vials that explode on the floors. This is also where they introduce the ground that you don't bounce on when you shovel on it. You just go right through, like the loose sand, which becomes important later. And for a long time, it took me a while to figure out how to get out of a downward stab. You just attack to get out of it, and that becomes necessary eventually. But this is where they're trying to train you to do that, because it's not dire if you don't do it yet.
Yeah. This is also the first stage where they work in heavy pattern recognition into the platforming, I feel, because of these jet floors, the ones that shoot up the bursts of flame. Those are incredibly precise as you move along, and it forces you to really time your motions and commit to a string of jumps.
Yeah, it's similar to the factory level in Contra.
Yeah.
With the spike ceilings that come down on regular intervals. There's a cool mini boss here too. This alchemist who originally is just tossing potions at you, but when you hurt him enough, he drinks one and becomes a big yeti.
He's not tossing potions. He is frantically
searching for them.
Searching for them and just tossing them out incidentally, trying to. So he in his rush to find the one that will turn him into a yeti to attack you, he is also incidentally attacking you. I love the animation because he looks like Stan, the salesman from Monkey Island.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love the background. It's really trippy, psychedelic. These neon flasks.
Yeah, lots of really bright neon colors on black backgrounds. So it does look like a blacklight poster. in the best possible way.
And that carries over into the Plague Knight himself with his Rock and Plague Doctor mask.
Yes. Yeah. And this guy's real crazy. Like, this is not my favorite fight in the game. Like, it feels very random. Like, he just jumps around and throws a lot of potions that blow up.
Right.
A lot. And he just leaps around and never stands still is kind of his concept.
Yeah. Leaps around, never stand still. You're on this infirm ground, and he is changing the topology of it. So it's hard for you to get around as quickly as he can because he can move very quickly and teleport, right?
Yeah. Yep. So it's not a bad fight or anything, but it's probably my least favorite night fight. But I like Plague Knight a lot. I like the design of him. I like the theming quite a bit.
The Lost City, I like.
And
this.
what treasure do you get from the Exploratorium?
I have no idea.
I'm trying to remember. It's probably just another like projectile-y one.
Yeah.
Like there are a bunch of them that kind of don't fulfill that different of a, a thing, of a purpose. So they kind of blend together.
Right. I'm taking a look, and I don't see one.
I knew you get something though.
Oh, the alchemy coin. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that thing, which I never used.
Nope. It's just a way to gamble and get money.
Yeah. Yep. So not that useful.
Oh well. You get something really useful in the Lost City though.
Yeah, this is a great level.
I love this.
Yeah, this is super.
It's a mine level that works.
Yeah, finally, with like just tons of really cool little concept-y things in this. So this is the Lost City, which is the series of sunken mines that has been taken over by the Mole Knight.
Yeah, and you have these slimes, and everything can catch fire as it goes along. And there's not a lot of gimmick to it, honestly. Like you have exploding blocks that will set off on a fuse as you go along. But this is kind of really leaning on different enemies that become obstructions as they're moving along.
Right, and then the bouncing beetle section, which is probably the biggest gimmick, which is this cute bouncy beetle that has a gross gooey back.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You can bounce on to get through.
I wrote that down in the notes, but I had no idea what it signified until you said that thing you just said.
Yeah, he's got it's the auto-scrolling section of the level. The enemy is this dust knuckle, which is a pleasing set of words. And this is a forward like little melee attack, but if you do it next to a block, you just kind of jump to the other end.
Yeah, move into that space.
Yeah, so you can kind of fly and just kind of chun, and fly as long as you're doing it in front of destructible blocks. Honestly, they don't use this a lot. Like you do it here, and then you do a little bit in the end, and you do it for the challenge level, but it doesn't come up all that often.
It's neat here, and I think that might be enough.
I think so.
Yeah. So I was frantically searching in my mind to figure out what this is kind of cribbing from. I can't think of an analog for this. Like as I was trying to write down what it does, like you described it very aptly, probably better than I could. But I can't say, oh, it's like that. It's like X or Y.
Yeah, this is not from the NES playbook,
right?
Unlike the Anchor, which is directly from that. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure either.
Yeah, Mole Man's a pretty good fight. I love his intro because he shames your shovel. As a mole, he knows digging.
Yeah, he knows digging and uses drills and stuff. And that plays in wonderfully at the end too. Like you get a little coda with these guys.
Yep.
And it comes back up. The boss fight's pretty standard. His kind of gimmick is that he will dig underground and appear and reappear in different areas. He also can kind of throw blocks and throw sparks out when he's doing these things. So there's not too much to it. Yeah. Like just avoiding his hurt boxes and hitting his hit boxes. Right. Really.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Like I feel good when he throws a series of increasing height blocks. Just because like, oh, I know the rhythm on this. Like, I'm matching that. And then, that's how you get him open for an attack. So that is pleasing.
Yeah. Yeah. After you beat this guy, it unlocks the catapults, which allow you to go back and forth between the section of the map, which is like
fast travel.
Yeah. It's super friendly though. Yeah. Like it's just very like the game it's not that big. Like it could have got away without doing this. I didn't feel like, oh man, I could have really used this. Like it's just nice of them.
Yeah. Yep, I just love the idea of being like the what's the name of the agent who's going after the beer baron?
Oh, Rex
Banner.
Steve?
Yep.
Yeah, Rex Banner.
You just step on it like Rex Banner, and you're flying over from town to town. Yeah. I don't know. It's pretty cool. You also have a wandering knight match with the Black Knight, and this is your first glimpse of the Enchantress.
Yes, and she just kind of goads him on into fighting you and powers him up a little bit. So he's a little bit stronger now. But again, it's very similar to the first fight, just a little bit more so.
And this kind of takes you on to the next set, kind of, right?
Yes. Yep. First, which is the stranded ship, and this is the domain of the Polar Knight, and this is an ice level, and again, an ice level that works.
Well, I mean, why would a nice level work?
Yeah, why wouldn't an ice level work?
Yeah, a nice. It's a nice level, right?
It is a nice level.
Okay.
It's also an ice level. Did I say nice on accident?
No, I'm just being an asshole.
We've shirted up enough. I don't think the ice level thing is gonna take off, buddy.
Wait a minute. Now I can't make stupid jokes without it being a shirt.
It's all shirts. Everything. There's just a shirtographer, like listening to this. It's like a stenographer for shirts.
Yeah.
And they're just like busy, stitching in.
Guys, we're the oatmeal now.
Yeah. What if you had somebody taking notation, but they were literally just doing it on the shirts, and then to read your notation, you just got like a series of 12 or 15 aids to stand next to each other and like become, the paragraphs that you just written. That's decadent. That's what I want to do if I'm there, like notation night.
So what that put in my head was human-sized poker.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, where you have 52 servants, all of whom have a...
Yeah, all have a poker symbol on their chest.
Yep, and they're standing in front of you.
Yeah, fuck human chest. Or human chess.
Yeah,
fuck a human chest.
Yeah, I think I've seen that documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, human poker.
Yeah, human poker, that's good. That's a good idea. Give me every, arrange them all like tallest to shortest or what have you, to randomize them the first time, and then just pick out 7 at random.
Yeah.
And then when you discard them, they die.
Yep, it's just a pit. You pull a lever, the floor opens up under them.
Yeah.
I just okay. The next con we go to, let's organize that.
A human poker tournament.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing. That would be pretty good. I like the idea of like World Series of human poker, where it's like some fat guy with a goatee and a bad hat, who's real serious and mean looking with a tucked in black shirt, like looking at 5 dudes who are just staying there slack-jawed with shirts, and then like dismissing one of them with his poker face.
Yeah.
And then Pendulets on the other end, like celebrity human pokering it.
Yep. No, you do. So in order to make it so nobody can see the suit, like which card it is, everybody's sitting on one of those chairs from The Voice. And so when it's time to reveal your hand, you hit the lever and they all turn around.
Yeah, they all flip around.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
This is an expensive game, Gary.
Yes, it's an expensive game. Whatever the value is of 52 people.
What were we talking about?
Polar Knight.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a pretty cool level. Because man, I love those the rainbow platforms.
Yeah, those things are really interesting looking. They're like these like little platforms you can barely stand on, but when you hit them, they create this like rainbow trail behind them, and then you have to keep doing it, or they'll sink. And boy, do they use these to infuriating effect near the end. Like,
yeah,
not bad, but like just very hard. You have to master these things.
Yeah. You also have puffs of snow that are kind of like knocking you down as you go along. So again, complications to the platforming.
Yeah. And you get one of the least useful, I think, power-ups here.
Yeah, if it was less expensive, it would probably be good, but that's probably a balance consideration.
Yeah, it does a little. It's very similar to there's a very similar thing in Rogue Legacy. You do a little like Fusu Ra, like and knock enemies away, but it's too expensive.
Yeah,
I never use that.
This is pretty cool. It's probably the best combat tutorial that you have for a relic that is geared around combat, because when you get this thing, a whole group of enemies piles in, and it is immediately an opportunity to see it in effect, which is nice because otherwise I just wouldn't have used it.
Yeah, and instead this was the one time I used it. There were probably areas that would have been easier a little bit later on that they wanted me to use it, but I just kind of filed it in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
I love that you fight Polar Knight at the end of this, which I love because there is this shadowy implication that you guys are old friends, and the reason why is because he is also a Shovel Knight, but snow shovel.
Right.
That's so cute.
He's like the crazy guy from Home Alone.
Yeah, yeah. It's so good. Like, yes, old friend. The winds have changed. Like, it just becomes this dramatic. Anime standoff.
This will be our last duel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is cool because he adapts to you. He knows your tricks, and that kind of plays into a story beat. Like, oh, he knows you. He knows he's going to try and bounce on your head. So he holds his shovel up over, and you can only get one attack in. You can't do the multi attack that I've leaned on so long.
Yeah, it ends up being really hard too. You're kind of punished for doing that because one of his attacks exposes the spikes in the floor, which means that like this is a boss fight where instant death is on the line.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. So yeah, again, I just leaned really heavily on the phase locket to get through that. If I was falling off of him and there were spikes, I would phase lock it until I can get to safety.
Yeah, throw snowballs at you like by digging him up and then sending him out. So it's kind of like the Mole Knight in that you're leaping over stuff that's coming at you.
Yeah. After that, you get the Clockwork Clock Tower. So again, just it wouldn't be a Castlevania homage without a clock tower level.
Yeah, and it really articulates just like one. You have your conveyor belt spikes, rolling bouncy gears that you have to bounce over.
Yeah, and even down to your sub-weapon, which is this little gear platform, which is straight out of like a Rush power-up.
Yeah.
In Mega Man. Like it creates a little gear platform that moves forward and will bounce and kind of traverse you over spikes and stuff.
I never trusted it.
Yeah, it's good for a couple of things, but it is scary because you move really quickly, and if you get to a pit at the end, that's it for you.
Yeah. There are kind of these platforms that assemble as you move along them.
Yeah, which are look really cool in a Bastion-y kind of way.
Yeah.
And and there's a really tricky upward scrolling section where the floor is coming to meet you and kill you, and you have to dig through areas on your way there, and it's pretty tricky.
Yeah. And you're going to see more of this as it goes along. Thankfully, we are really close to the end.
Yes.
In terms of that, so like we are getting to the point where this really difficult stuff is going to start kind of piling backward on the stuff that we've seen before.
Yeah, they start combining all the different paints in the thing. The end of this, the Tinker Knight,
my favorite boss.
He's awesome. So one thing is that gear thing will one shot his first form.
Oh,
which is yeah. And he does not like that gear thing. But he's a cute little mechanic.
Is it because you stole his invention, or did you outpace him? Is he the other guy from Amadeus? Like, no, it's not good.
Salieri or whatever?
Yeah, Salieri. Just going nuts. Like, yes, it goes over spikes. No, what have I done? My life has been a waste.
I just called him Solari, which is a nice little Dark Souls version of that too.
Yeah. The music here is an awesome little Russian dance number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super, super cool. Initially, he just kind of throws wrenches at you, but his first phase is nothing. So you kill him, he becomes a big Mega Man enemy. This huge tread armor thing
with a gigantic drill.
Yes.
Along it, and part of it is trying to navigate up on top of that drill so you can attack him as he rests on the shoulders of this thing.
Yeah, and this is the boss. When I was talking about the anchor making a boss trivial, this is the one.
Oh, okay.
You can hit him from the bottom using the anchor. Without actually having to traverse him at all.
It's really fun to traverse him, though.
He is fun to traverse.
Yeah, it's a little. So he's like a little Colossus.
Yeah, he is. He's the tiniest Colossus.
Tiny Colossus sounds like a crazy hip hop, indie hip hop guy.
Tiny Colossus.
Yep.
Yeah, or just an intolerable indie band.
Yeah.
That could be. I go see either way. Next is the airship. Which I think is the hardest regular level of the game by a country mile. I think this is really hard. So
yeah, for sure. And it is a good last regular level.
Yeah.
So it kind of looks like a Mario 3 level, those airships. As it goes along, just because so much of it takes place over void, right?
Yeah.
And something that's great about this is the bottom of the screen doesn't necessarily equal death. Oftentimes, it just means that you're going to lose ground, right? You'll just fall back to a previous screen.
Yeah, if you're climbing a column. It's pretty good at if you're outside, falling is going to kill you usually. Right. If you're inside, you're just going to lose time. So you're fighting these different kind of propeller and halberd knights. These fan knights that fly in and kind of wind is kind of the real gimmick. here, which influences your platforming again. You get this really good, your item here, the propeller dagger, which lets you fly forward a short distance. When you jump is very useful.
Yeah.
And is one of the more empowering movement power-ups you get in this game.
Yeah, it trivializes a lot of platforming that does not take place here.
Yes.
Yeah, like this is kind of designed around it to a certain extent.
Yes. But yeah, and then once you get to the second half of this level, and every shit just gets super real.
Yes, it
like
does.
because you're always over the void, over always death, and they didn't make this so for people to traverse over. They made it for people with jetpacks and stuff. So and your dagger won't quite cut it. So there's like a part where they're shooting cannonballs. You have to bounce on them to get across. Several areas where the wind kind of moves up and down, or then in a clockwise fashion, and there are spikes. So it's like a really tricky puzzle.
Yeah, it's effectively like a VVVB level a little bit. Where the gravity kind of oscillates on its own periodically.
Yeah, super hard.
Yeah, I like the Propeller Knight. He's
me too. Yeah, he's like an Errol Flynn character.
Yes, he is.
He's a fencer.
Yeah, he's real Frenchy.
Yeah.
Down to his death animation where he throws a rose.
Yep. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And his big thing is these kind of like lunges, these fencing-esque lunges he does back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get kind of like stun locked in the middle of him. Like you have a generous invincibility period so you can get out, but if you're just trying to stand right in front of him and don't do anything, he will hit you repeatedly.
Right.
You kind of have to come at this guy from above or from behind if you want to take him out.
And he accounts for you coming at him from above. Like one of his attacks is to fling you into the air and then in a super cocky fashion point his rapier up and then to
catch you,
follow underneath you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also an inversion of the catcher thing too, which I like. And you can actually use this if you use the phase locket. You can actually hurt him through this.
Okay.
So if you land on him with your shovel, it'll hurt him and not you if you phase right before you do it, which is cool.
At a certain point, he calls in artillery, literally, with another airship that blows the platform to bits.
Yes.
So just picture that, this knight ordering another ship to attack his own ship in order to take you down.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Foreshadowing, again, like later boss fights you're going to have where the floor becomes incomplete.
Yes.
So like any Mega Man, and then there's also the Frigid Flight map, which is another challenge map to teach you to use the flying dagger. There's not too much more to it, but it is useful for these last couple maps. Yeah. Because like Mega Man, we have this multi-part end stage.
The Tower of Fate.
Yes. Yeah. Which sounds very Dark Souls-y anyway.
Yes, it does a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is where everything kind of gets real. This is the extended final exam.
Yes, and they do a really good job of like nothing is introduced here. Like everything is just like, hey, everything that you've like, I feel like everything that you've done in every level shows up. Nothing is omitted. And it all shows up in different contexts. And like this is like the same way that the tutorial of this game I think is like a masterclass in a platforming tutorial. I think this is like a masterclass in the last set of levels.
Right. Like
it is very difficult. I died a lot on it, and some parts where I would get kind of furious at it, but they never like everything they're all things you've been prepared for.
Right. Yeah, and like this opens with a fuck you. Like remember in Mega Man X the outside of Sigma's tower? Like how difficult that was because of for a really similar reason. Man, Mega Man X comes up so often in this.
Yeah. Like that seems like a pretty clear inspiration.
Yeah. But you have these skullfish that are hopping out like you would see in a ROM hack. Like they're very intentionally putting them in places that will fuck you over.
Yeah. Until you learn and then learn about them, and then eventually you can just kind of use them as platforms.
Right.
Like you do this part so many times that eventually you just figure it out.
Yeah. The other gimmick here is kind of this rising and falling floor that you have to kind of like keep in phase with and also kind of predict, because if you get too ambitious, if you get into a rush, you'll actually leave a zone of safety and leave yourself open to being smushed.
Yeah. There's a part of this that is very difficult where you get in a little tucked in area and you have to come out of it to get to the next platform or the next safe area. But the real trick is not to go into that little tucked in area, because you're often going to die on the way out of that. So it's just to make it from the safety zone before that. But it's not necessarily intuitive. Like figuring that out was very satisfying because it inverts, what I thought. It's a standard like go from safe point to safe point kind of thing.
You have the silhouettes, and this is really where I took exception to it, as opposed to before in the way back in the Spectre Knight area, just because there's a little bit of a subtle cue about what is real and what is background.
Yeah,
where rain is landing.
It's beautiful though.
Oh yeah, it's
that
great.
like storm green background, like that weird way in the Midwest, like before a tornado, the sky turns that color.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's super good. And then like I feel like once it feels cheap until you figure it out, which did take me the first time I played it a couple times to find the cue because it is really subtle, and then that made me mad. Once I figured it out, I was fine, but I did feel like I had a couple like I just fell through the floor. This is bullshit, like anger moments. In it, but I eventually got through it.
Yeah, see the reason behind it, and it takes knowledge compresses space.
Yeah. So you're up to the end. The Enchantress supercharges the Black Knight, and he's total one-wing angel at this point, and has tons of superpowers,
right,
and wings.
Yeah, and
he's a two-winged angel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's just an angel. Is what that's what you're describing.
That's what those are called.
Okay, cool.
I prefer to choose logic. I think I choose rationality instead of that, Cole.
Okay. Man, I can't decide which one of us is being more pedantic. He fills the screen with fireballs and like shoots. He calls down meteors and shit.
Yeah, and it's tough, but they're like extensions of things he's already done for the most part. Like he has a supercharged version of his attack, his slam the ground attack and stuff. Yeah.
I love the story beat that takes place after this.
Yeah. This is the big subversion.
It doesn't hit you over the head with it.
Yeah.
Like, if it was less tasteful, it would have been, you'll never believe it. I've been reading the scrolls and I see some. The Enchantress is the Shield Knight. It's only obliquely referenced.
Yeah, until it becomes obvious later.
Yeah.
But here it is just kind of like, if you're not paying close attention, you could miss that beat and still think you're on a rescue quest.
Yeah. Yeah. And, cool. Just like, oh, he is trying to save her just in a different way. Like, nah, man, it's so great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a bad guy. So you're up to the ascent of the Tower of Fate, the next stage of the Tower of Fate, where they bring in more of the actual platforms that are tricky from that. So like lots of spike and water section and lava sections.
Yeah. Man,
you know what we missed? Is it in the mold level where you are shunting the piles of goo to freeze the lava?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Sorry, I don't mean to call it out, but I think it comes up here too.
It does.
That's really cool. Like I like that.
Yeah.
That mechanic a lot.
It's like Jello.
Yeah. It's super cool. Like just this goo that you add to lava to turn into fun bouncy lava.
Yeah. And it's the little goo monsters too, I think.
Yeah. Poor guys.
I'll always love a slime.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see that here. You also have the floating platform. That happens here, and this is where it gets really difficult because they combine him with those with the Fan Man.
It is so hard.
Yeah,
I died so many fucking times on this, and a ninja guy. So like on your way through that floating platform, and these are the ones that you have to hit to move forward, like the weird little bird platforms.
Yeah.
Fan Man just pops up, but there's also like samurai ninja things that come out of the sky, and it is so hard. Like I died so many fucking times on this. Very difficult.
Yeah, it took a bit, and like that fan thing, it's really bad because he's against a black background, and so it's difficult to see what the effective range of the push is.
And you can't, you can't really, the way these platforms work is you can't really take your attention off them to deal with a threat.
Right.
Like they will continually sink unless you jump to make them gain buoyancy or shoot them forward.
Right.
So eventually what I ended up doing was just, fireballing this guy, like knowing where he was going to appear and sending a bunch of fireballs in that direction and lucking out.
Yeah.
And that did it. But
yeah. You also get this auto-scrolling upward section, which rivals any other of those in the game here. And this is really where phase is important.
Yeah, super hard. At the end of this, you run into all the knights eating dinner.
Yep.
And they decide to fight you. It is a boss rush. And you've got in here as reverse order, but it's actually random.
Oh.
The order you fight these guys in.
Huh. It was, I guess both times I noted that it was in reverse order. But that's actually really cool. Like you can't prepare for what's coming up next.
Yep. And so after you beat them, you get these health power-ups between bosses, and they all kind of recreate their boss stages. They don't really twist. It's just like what happens if you fight all the bosses at once.
Right.
Once you beat them, they all hang on the ledge, hanging off each other like a chain, and it's in the order you beat them.
Yeah.
So that's different every time too, which is really cute.
Yeah. So this is the most humane boss rush I think I've ever seen. Just because it gives you these health power-ups, you're eating their dinner as you're killing them, apparently. Just to really hammer it home. Like, how often has a game like this fallen flat because, like, oh, let's make you fight all these guys again?
Yeah, it doesn't feel shitty. There's a checkpoint right before it, which is great. And the boss fights are such a joy that, like, I'm happy to, it felt really empowering just to trounce everybody again.
Yeah. Can you opt not to save them?
Yeah.
Because I would feel like a dick if I didn't.
Yeah, I would too. But you can. You can leave them to die.
Damn. Well, then you don't get the epilogue.
Yeah, which would be sad, but you can do it.
Huh.
But yeah, you scoop them up with your shovel, again, using your shovel, and save them all. I wonder if you can just save some of them. I wonder if you can scoop a couple of them and then leave. Like, but
if it just became like a really heavy-handed moral choice, like press right trigger to save him, press left trigger to leave him to his fate.
Press R3 to save some of him.
Yeah.
So, and they each give you a little line of dialogue, some of which are slightly more repenty and some of which are not. The Polar Knight says, "I still think you should join us," which I really like. Like, he's sticking to his guns.
Yeah. And this takes you to the final piece of the Tower of Fate, which is a little tricky platforming section, avoiding these blocks that are coming at you, and a last crusade leap of faith as the floor rises to meet you.
Yeah,
as you're going along.
Mercifully, this is really short.
Yeah.
And just leads to, there's just one checkpoint and you get to it right before the unboss. The multiple phase unboss.
Yes. The Enchantress herself, right?
Yep. So, and her kind of thing is flying around, destroying portions of the floor, which means instant death is in play, again, during a boss fight, which is really hard. And this is somewhat random too. Depending on the pattern she follows, this can be easier or more difficult, more or less ground to work with.
Right. And because you're at the end of the game, there's no real penalty for death aside from lost time.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're long past the point of having bought out all the upgrades.
Right.
At this point, we should note that if you don't find the stage upgrade in the stage, Chester will sell it to you in the village.
Yes.
Which kind of his purchase there, but it's more expensive if you miss the opportunity. Right. It's like if you go to a convention, you can buy things on the last day because people don't want to carry it back to their storefronts.
Right.
For cheaper.
Life hack.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's your source for life hacks.
Yeah. But really, the Enchantress in this stage is just a conventional projectile wizardy lady.
Yeah. So not too special. But the nice thing is after you fall through the floor down to the next level, Shield Knight falls again, which I love this. Like, I love that in the main, this is the thing you've been dreaming about.
Yep.
The whole time, and you have to do it again, which is just so good. And the amulet that she had that made her crazy, the magic escaped and turned into a big Zeromus figure. But you're fighting with Shield Knight.
Yeah.
And you get to see like why these people work so well together.
Right. Because she has a gigantic shield that she uses either to jump up and shield you from the magic, which does a lot of damage. Like, you need to stick with her and be as in tandem as possible. And she will jump up and kind of present that as a bouncing platform so you can reach the face of this Zeromus figure that you otherwise wouldn't be able to hit. Yeah,
you wouldn't ordinarily be able to get that high by any means. It makes me want a co-op version of this really badly.
Yeah.
Like a Portal 2-esque, like one person is Shield Knight, one is Shovel Knight, and you both have to do stuff. That would be badass.
Just do like the co-op expansion.
Yeah.
Of like, Shovel Knight and Shield Knight Strike Again or something like that. Of, just like 5 or 6 challenge maps that are around that.
They said something during that stream of letting you play with Plague Knight as a patch through the game, which is pretty interesting. But I would love to, like, the way, if they could design or use these kind of maps as they are, but make it other characters that have mobility that allows you to get through them as well, that would be really fun. Make
it a little bit like a Castlevania Portrait of Ruin.
Yeah. Yep. So you just had to bounce on this thing. This boss is easier than the one before it.
Right.
I think because there's no instant death.
Right.
I don't think. Oh, no, yeah, there is. She tears apart the floor.
Oh, yeah.
But having Shield Knight there, that also lets you kind of traverse those as well, because she'll create platforms.
Yeah.
To move through.
And, obviously, the tower starts falling down after you kill this because its magic was keeping it up, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. Load-bearing magic.
Yes. And Shovel Knight gets injured, and the Shield Knight decides to sacrifice herself so that the Black Knight can take Shovel Knight out. Man, I said knight a lot in that sentence.
Yeah, that is true.
And Black Knight is really reluctant, like, let's escape together, leave Shovel Knight to die. But no, this is what Shield Knight wants.
Yep, and he doesn't like you, but he does it because it's her request, because you guys are both in love with her.
Right.
And why wouldn't you? So you get an epilogue after this, where it's kind of like a Zelda-style epilogue where you get to see these places in kind of their natural state, and the knights get their comeuppance, for the most part. Like, the King Knight is now a servant, like scrubbing the floor.
Yep.
And where the king is. But I like how Spectre, I like how you have this here, because I was going to call it out if you didn't. The Spectre Knight throws a monster party.
Yeah.
Just super good.
Which, this village is now ruined. Like, it is claimed by monsters. Those people didn't get their homes back.
Nope. They still have to live in the basement of a bar. So, yeah.
Yeah. Treasure Knight finds a dime.
Yep.
Which is pretty good. Plague Knight is Snape now. He's teaching potions.
Yep. I like that a lot. And Tinker Knight is making toys for kids, which is super cute.
There's a super dramatic shot of Polar Knight looking off at the horizon.
Yeah.
There's no dialogue or anything. Just like
it's straight up Proto Man. Like,
yep, Kane from Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Black Knight kind of apparently leaves you for dead at a bonfire.
Yep, he did the bare minimum. Like, she said to get you out of here. That's all she said.
Yeah, he still hates you.
But he drops you off by a bonfire, which you've been seeing the entire game. And then it ends with Shield Knight limping to join you. Like, she made it.
Yeah.
Which, like, I'm
super
so glad.
heartwarming.
Like, yeah, like I wouldn't have been happy if it would have been the wrong choice to have her die. Like, it would have been a little bit more melodramatic. And I am such a fan of downer endings and things.
Yeah.
But not from this.
Right.
This, like, they've done such a good job of selling that relationship with doing so little and making me feel such, I was rooting for these characters so hard that, like, I'm really glad she came back.
Yeah. Companionship is good.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of implied to be romantic, but it's not explicitly romantic.
Right.
It could be just like these guys are just great buddies who work together.
Yeah.
Either
reading is really positive and affirming,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And there is a new game plus in this. It is kind of a traditional new game plus where everything's just kind of harder.
Yeah. It's not really that interesting, like to me anyway, like to somebody who is more into the challenge and less into seeing the variety. I could see it being their cup of tea. It doesn't make the things that matter difficult, I think. Like, it just kind of increases the numbers and takes away some checkpoints.
Yeah, like you could make the platforming more difficult without doing extensive redesign.
Yeah. And that was Shovel Knight. Like, holy shit, man, this is such a good game.
It's really good. Like, we're really blessed during first quarter 2015 of the games we've been playing for our shows, because like we're on a real good run of Watch Out for Fireballs games. And we are a real good run of this, where it's like, like I said, it is hard to, like, this is at least tied with my favorite game of last year. It's so good. It's so it's like the best NES platformer.
Right.
Like, I think I like this more than I like DuckTales. And I love DuckTales.
Yeah.
It is nice just to see somebody just take these, like, awesome ideas that should not have fallen out of favor and just do them perfectly.
Yeah, and it doesn't take DuckTales away. Like, those are still there, but like to see the modern conveniences and kind of like modern takes on these, game mechanics that were really just kind of taken for granted back then. Specifically, death here, for as much as people say like everything having to do with Dark Souls makes something more difficult, this is in a way a lot more forgiving than any of those games otherwise would have been, because it is not designed as a holdover from an arcade game, and it's not designed in order to feel like to justify the purchase of a $75 cart.
Right. Yeah. It is more, it's kinder, but then also more nuanced. Like, it's taking some of those old mechanics and complicating them in a way that people maybe weren't thinking about at the time, in just a way that just feels really elegant and good. Yeah. So this is mandatory for people who are listening to this to play. If you haven't played this, I demand you do it, because again, if you like video games, you'll love Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
So Dark Souls or not, like, even if it wasn't like this, I covered it on that Comrade episode. So I've covered this for 2 shows on the network, and I still feel good about it. Yeah. Like, I'm going to figure out a way to do an episode of Teenage Dirtbags where it's just the soundtrack, and it's just making jokes about that.
And we spoke about it several times on the level too.
Yeah,
like it is a mainstay on the network, and it is definitely the high point of last year in terms of games that make you feel good about video games.
I would like to hear from somebody who didn't like this and hear why. Like, not in a like I'm gonna call you an asshole and blah blah blah, but like I haven't heard a compelling argument against this game, and I'd be curious as to what one looked like.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, we'd still just be disagreeing about video games, so it's not a big deal. Like that isn't it's not as aggressive as maybe it sounds, but I am interested just to hear what faults people are finding with this.
Everything that I've heard that, might be negative, I think I've listened to more video game podcasts than you do, has more to do with just feeling uninspired by it. Like it just didn't rev their engine in kind of a really, what feels like a subjective way. And I'm not saying that to dismiss anybody who has a different opinion.
Yeah, like just a gut.
Yeah.
They just didn't think it was cool. I could see that. I mean, I guess I could see that. I could also see if you play more new games than I do, getting sick of the fakey retro enough to just kind of throw this baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just sick of retro, 8-bit platformers. Like, I'm just done with them. Like, I guess I could see that. But as somebody who is not done with them, and is selective about the ones I play, this is really the cream of the crop.
Yeah. And I don't want to ruin what happens next week on the appendix for this episode, but even the people who have bad things to say about it are doing it specifically to give us bad things to say. Like, here's
nice of them.
Here's the other side of this, just because everybody else is going to be gushing about it, and then it quickly turns into praise over the course of like 2 paragraphs.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, super, super good. After that appendix, what are we doing, Cole?
After that appendix, we are starting our Lords of the Fallen section. And we're doing that in 3 parts.
Yep. And with one appendix. So everyone can write in their things. And we have that roughly plotted out. I might need to examine that again. But roughly into thirds. If you are interested in or not interested in spoilers or something, I would say start playing it now. It's not a hugely long game. It's significantly shorter than either of the Dark Souls games.
Yeah.
And we're going to cover all your favorite bosses, the perpetrator, the administrator,
the executor,
the esquire. While you're, I actually like that game, but it is something that like. It makes a nice contrast. Like Shovel Knight being in the middle of these 2 games is really interesting because like I really like 3D Game.Heroes. I think I like it a little bit more than I like Lords of the Fallen, but I like Lords of the Fallen. But it's not perfect. Like there are lots of things I can make fun of. Like somebody's like, I hate Lords of the Fallen. I'm like, okay. Like very well. I'm not in like I am interested in hearing what people have to say about it, but not out of curiosity. Like I could see the reasons why somebody would really dislike this.
Yeah.
And for both 3D Game Heroes and Lords of the Fallen.
Yeah. So as you're playing along with the show, if you listen to that first episode and we say we're going to cover something that you haven't played yet, feel free to wait to listen to the rest of it or something like that. But you have those 3 weeks to send in, or those 2 weeks to send in responses.
Yes, roughly. I think the first episode is going to cover the first 3 bosses.
Right.
So if that gives you a marker. After that, we're going to be covering the patch version of Scholar of the First Sin, which is really going to be an episode talking about that character, which is significant. Like it's gonna fill up an episode because it adds a lot of things, and it's going to be a lot of kind of an extended corrections thing, as that patch and version of the game has cemented a lot of things that we've conjectured about during the season.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Gary has already seen all that stuff. I didn't have a character that was in good position. If you're listening to this and you're like, what's the deal with this patch? This has the new NPC, kind of some new content around that, I'm led to believe. But mostly it is kind of some balance adjustments and some addendums and revisions to the item descriptions.
Yes, that there aren't tons of them, but all of them feel meaningful.
Like changing sleeps to slumbers.
Yeah, that one's very funny. Like Vivian made fun of that on Facebook, and she's right, because I mean it is a better word, but like it does seem like it's just like we gotta do a retraction. But the things like they answer questions big and small, and the biggest question that it answers is satisfying and unexpected for me. And this just came out yesterday morning. Like it is no good thing that I beat this already. I was just putting off doing homework. So I don't mean to brag, but I'm happy to be able to plan for the show better, having, known what we're doing. After that, we will be covering Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And we'll have the specifics of that as we get closer.
Mm-hmm. And then sometime in the middle of the Bloodborne season, we're definitely going to do something about the remixed areas of Dark Souls 2 that come along in the next-gen version of Scholar.
Yeah, I couldn't talk about it during the last time I talked to Kole, which would have been the appendix episode of the. Even though I guess I can put that in now because the embargo is over.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a Scholar of the First Sin event thing, and I was under embargo until yesterday morning or this morning rather, to not talk about the things. But I saw the new version, like the next gen version of Scholar of the First Sin, and it seems different enough to definitely justify an episode and appendix, and it is different enough to make me excited enough to want to play it. There will be a discount for people who own it on PC. So it is a money. I mean, the internet is infuriating about this because it's like, after I finished Scholar of the First Sin, all I wanted to do was go online and read people's lore shit. And all I could find were people talking about it being a cash grab. And like, you know, like, I don't know. It is just
careful. We're going to get in trouble.
Well, it's just, I get it, but is it the most important thing about this piece of art? Like, is this, if you're going to have a discussion online, is this the most important thing you could be discussing?
It is the one that most directly affects me, and that's what matters.
Why is it the one that most directly affects you, though? Like, the actual content of the thing that is interesting, I feel like should affect you more.
Because this isn't an expression, it is a product, and it should be treated as such. And as a product, what it is. I am taking a little bit of a straw man position here. I'm in your camp. I'm just doing a funny thing in a non-funny way. Yeah, no, you're being. I'm too angry to laugh. I think you're right. I think that is it. Just these people coming out with the Consumer Reports style. Like, am I getting enough bang for the buck? Fuck you, man. Like, we can do better than that as an art form. So from what I saw, and with a discount, like, I maybe wouldn't want to drop $60 on it. If they release it for 20 or 30, I'm way into it. It's dark. Like, the area, like, it is super dark. The basement of Forest of the Fallen Giants is very difficult to see without a torch. It is dark. It seemed like there were AI changes, that I saw, and lots of just different enemy stuff. And it is really pretty. Even in some of the promotional material, they've been very, kind of tactical about the shots that they've shown, and seeing trolls in places that otherwise there might not be trolls. Apparently, the pursuer is going to be a factor. Yeah, pursuer is going to, and there's another invader that pursues you that has some lore stuff. There's this thing called the Forlorn. Yeah. That troll that is in the middle of Forest of Fallen Giants really threw me for a fucking loop. But what it does is that, like, it is addressing a lot of things specifically from this show. In the way of enemy placement is not just more difficult, but sensical. Like, in Forest of Fallen Giants, there's tons of Vendrick soldiers, his other soldiers that you don't run into until later. Because of course they're leftovers from the war. And if you go to Hade's Tower of Flame, guess what's there? Are there Hade Knights? Yeah, Hade Knights. And I'll just spoil, this might be a spoiler. There are lots of them. So, and they're not all sleepy. Oh, man. So imagine fighting those remixed with other enemies, as more of a normal enemy. So I'm into it. So we're definitely going to have to do an episode about it. We wanted to avoid going back to Dark Souls 2 in the middle of Bloodborne, but I think it's justified. It's going to happen. I mean, yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah. So I'm jazzed. I'm jazzed about both. This is going to be a great first half of this year. Like, not just for this, but also, like, hey, Arkham Knight comes out in June. Like, that has nothing to do with this, but, like, I feel very positive about my docket this year. Me too. Pillars of Eternity and Tides of Numenera come out. Like, it is going to be a good year for games. But I'm now I'm an old man. I'm positive about everything. Like, everyone is complaining about 2014. I'm like, no, it was a great year for games. Tons of good games came out, idiots. Anywho, no, and people are listening to this aren't idiots. Just people complaining online about that. Right. So we have a long appendix to record, so we'll sign off. What can they do to help out? They can. Well, here's a bit of network news. We ran that merch survey, and we've decided to do a series of Teespring campaigns just to figure that out. That is like a crowdfunding T-shirt kind of thing. We have a very simple shirt up right now that is the Watch Out for Fireballs logo. They're $18, which is very reasonable in terms of online shirts that you buy. And we've met our goal in order to get those shipped and printed out. And that is a way to help support us and help, make sure that physical objects get out in the world, which is something we really like. Yeah. And a way to get a nice shirt. Yeah.
And we're going to be doing more of those. So if you listen to this and you don't listen to Watch Out for Fireballs, we're going to be doing more shirts.
Yeah.
So this is something that if it's successful, we're probably going to continue indefinitely.
Yep. I mean, it
just because even if if we get down to the level, like I think at the level now with shirts, like we're not going to make very much money if they just print this number of shirts, but we don't care because it's going to put these cool things into the world.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Shirts are not a money-making thing. I'm very happy Teespring exists. I'm curious about the print quality on them, so that's probably going to be another factor in this. If these are utter horseshit, I'm going to find another way to do that because I don't want to sell you horseshit.
Yeah.
So
I think they're good. I mean, I feel like I've read that they are good.
Yeah.
So
I did reviews and stuff, and I know that other podcasts have used them as well. So this is less about making money for us and more about getting stuff out there. We do make money off of it, but it is definitely the more sensible way to do it than ordering a bunch of inventory and sitting on it in my apartment.
Exactly. And for people who listen to this who don't support our Patreon because they want something more tangible, this is a good way to do that if you want to support the show and you just actually want a thing. But again, keep an eye out. There will be more Bonfireside Chat relevant shirts popping up down the line. That Patreon I mentioned is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Big help. And ratings and reviews on iTunes. Always helpful.
Always helpful. Also helpful if you have any thoughts about the stuff that we mentioned up front there, the games that we're doing next, you can go to duckfeed.tv/contact and send those in. Anytime is good. We keep them and then we use them.
Yep. And go on our Facebook page and talk to me about Scholar of the First Sin stuff, other than it being a cash grab.
I'll be there soon, Gary.
I want someone to talk to about that, and it's driving me mad. So without further ado, what should they watch out until next time?
Well, they should praise the Trapple King.
Sure.
All hail the Trapple King.
That's what you do in this show. All hail.
And his succulent juices.
Yeah, I was just imagine if I bit into a piece of trout and it tasted like apple, it would gross me out, and vice versa.
Is this a Wonka creation?
Yeah. Yes, Wonka's darkest creation.
Oompa Loompa Doopity Trout. If you don't like this, you'd better get out.
Candy Night's gone fucking bonkers.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon